Jamel is an actor, entrepreneur, public speaker, advocate, and educator. His life has taken him down an unconventional path of eclectic experiences, fostering a deep understanding of humanity. He began traveling the nation, telling his story, filling people with hope and compassion at 7. Despite being orphaned at 15, Ware's values continue to resonate through his academic journey at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. As a result, he relentlessly pursued a degree in social work. Ware focuses on empowering and healing others through thought-provoking concepts and humor. His calm, rational approach allows him to connect and engage with diverse communities to transform their experiences into tangible resources for themselves and their communities. Now, Alfonso Mills. Alfonso Mills is the executive director of This Is Your Moment Network, a media organization that promotes awareness and education about HIV advancements, prevention, and social determinants of health. He has an extensive background in the HIV field and is currently the community engagement strategist for an AIDS service organization in Atlanta, helping to advance the cause. Alfonso has achieved impressive results since the pilot release of TIYM in 2021, including placing in the top 3 in 2 pitch competitions and partnering with Emory School of Public Health to develop a media intervention program to be piloted in sexual health clinics around Atlanta. Alfonso is a Black, gender non-conforming person who grew up in a military family and obtained a bachelor's degree in psychology from Morehouse College. With his dedication to the HIV field, Alfonso is a leader in advancing awareness and education about HIV and promoting health equity for all. My goodness. Without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Jamel and Alfonso as they engage in a fireside chat, sharing their empowering story with us today.
Hello. Thank you for having us here today.
It's truly an honor. We were able to catch a little bit of the presentation before us, and it's clear that you all have some heavy hitters in here, but you all are having the real conversation. So thank you all for having us. We're happy to be here to share a little bit of the things that we have learned, share a little bit of our story, and I get to actually pick your brain a little bit.
A little bit. All right. But before we do that, I have to say, as happy as we are to be here, I am as equally nervous to be here. While it is vitally important for our story to be heard, it is also it's a nerve-wracking experience to be in a place that often does not recognize the type of family that Alfonso and I are. But before we jump into that, let's go into a little bit about our story, huh?
Yeah, so we met about this time, about 5 years ago.
Yes.
At a church conference. Jamel doesn't remember this part, so I'm just gonna kind of, but we met at church, and I was like, what's your name? I hadn't seen him before. And so a couple months later, we were in church, and there's that moment in church where they're like, everybody go greet your neighbor. And I'm a big hugger. So I walked all the way across the church to find Jamel to make sure that I got my hug from him. And that hug was kind of the thing that sparked us.
Yes.
And after that, it took us a couple of months to actually meet again, go on an actual date. Jamel had an event where he was celebrating a new job that he has. And I was like, well, Jamel, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it because I was super nervous. But it turned out that
he was the first one to show up. I know, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's my favorite thing. And from the moment he walked through the door, I didn't care who else showed up because there was something electrifying that happened in that first hug. And I just wanted to know who this person was. I think it's important to mention too that part of the reason why it took us so long to actually get together and having the opportunity to get to know one another. So I identify as transmasculine. What that means is that when I was born, the sex assigned to me was female. But as I grew and developed and learned myself, I understood myself to be more masculine, and masculine to the point of not a woman, but transmasculine, or identifying as a man. And I decided to transition when I was in my early 20s. I just turned 35. Woo, woo, cancer season out here. I decided to transition in my early 20s. And for all of my life, I have only ever dated women. And so when I met Alfonso and there was this transfer of energy, I was gravely confused about what was going on.
And myself, I was born male, and throughout my life grew up and identified as being male, but also recognized that there was a lot of feminine energy inside of me as well. So it wasn't until my late 20s that I said, you know what, I'm going to stop trying to hinder that side of me, and I'm going to let my femininity express itself, let it out, and figure out what it looks like to be somebody that really doesn't even identify as male. I consider myself gender nonconforming or two-spirit. So I embrace both my masculine and my feminine energy. And in that, when I met Jamel, I had never been with a transmasculine person before. I had dated women all up in high school, got to college. I did. And then I got to college and was like, oh, I can finally be gay. And then had dated men, and still to this day am with a man. But this is my first time dating somebody, like I said, of trans experience. And I think it has really opened both of our minds to, for me, it's opened my eyes to the difference between gender and sexuality, but also allowing both of them to express themselves fully and fluidly.
I would also like to know, while our identities are different, we are first and foremost Black.
Yeah.
We are a part of the Black community. And part of the reason that we're here today at the Black Maternal Mental Health Summit is because we are the proud parents of almost 14 months.
Yeah.
He'll be 14 months
tomorrow.
Yes, a 14-month-old baby boy who is our pride and joy. He is independent. He is happy. He is loving. Oh my goodness. He is just a ball of energy. And I'm sure any of you that have children understand what we are talking about. We are awake and barely here.
Okay. And also excited. So
also excited, yes.
Speaking of all those things, let's kind of jump in. Let's jump in. So first question, very open, but I think it encompasses a lot. How did intersectionality, because you talked about being Black, you talked about being trans, you talked about being queer, how did intersectionality impact your childbirth journey?
Yeah. That is a deep question. The intersectionality of my Blackness, my transness, my queerness. First and foremost, the idea of even starting a family was exciting and scary, because it was like, yes, we want to have a family, but what will our support system look like? Who will our doctors be? What will that care be like? How will we explain this to our family, to our friends, to people who walk up to us and see us as a gay couple and want to talk about adoption and what our process was like? So I'll start at the beginning. We were very fortunate to have an OBGYN who I love to death. She is a queer woman that works at Emory Midtown. I just got to shout out Dr. Elizabeth Collins, who from the very beginning of us deciding that we wanted to have a child, held our hands and walked with us through the process. She advocated for us. She prepared her staff from the front desk to the nurses to the other doctors. There was not an opportunity for them to misgender me, for them to scowl their faces at us and not have Dr. Collins immediately in their face. And so that created a safe environment for us. It also was important for us to find a doula, because we've heard from a lot of, only particularly me, I heard from a lot of my friends who had given birth that having a doula was so important. And I took that to heart. But here we come to the point of, how do we find a doula that respects who we are as a family? And that took a while. It took us, I would say probably until what, month 4 or 5,
yeah.
to find someone who said, I see you, I respect you, I'm here for you, I will walk through this journey with us. And I would like to shout out Kai, what's Kai's business name? Kaluntu something. We will get Kaluntu Reproductive.
Yes.
Kai was with us from the moment that we found them, all the way through the birthing process. So creating a safe environment was the number one most important thing for us throughout this journey. But even in having that safe environment, I constantly felt in a state of fear. I was at a certain point. Now, I've never been a skinny Benny. I've always been a nice teddy bear. I like being a teddy bear. But from a certain point of being able to know that my belly was rounder than normal, that you could see that there was something moving inside of me, I became terribly afraid of the world, because the world is afraid of difference. Mm-hmm. And that made me not want to leave my home. There got to a point where I wouldn't go anywhere unless Alfonso was with me, because Alfonso is a part of my safe space, of my environment that I had created. There became a point where going to the doctors was anxiety producing, because here I am, this trans mass person sitting inside of the OBGYN clinic with all of these other pregnant people. I was a high risk pregnancy because I have high blood pressure, sitting, so having to go to the doctors, starting, once every 3 weeks, and then once every other week, and then once a week, in this environment with all of these other pregnant people, mostly, and not by surprise, right? Pregnant women, but wondering, what are they thinking? What are they saying? Seeing them look at us, and just, it was so, it induced so much anxiety inside of me. But what I will say was, from the moment we got from waiting rooms into the back with the medical staff, I felt safe. So I do, again, want to shout out Emory Midtown's maternity department for training their staff, for ensuring that my family and families like me can come into their facility and feel welcome and feel heard and feel respected in the journey of becoming parents.
And I'm going to probe you a little bit here, because you mentioned mental health and anxiety, and how all of that kind of impacted the journey. Do you think race and everything that was that's happening in the world also played a part in kind of how you saw yourself and how you moved through and navigated the journey?
Oh, absolutely. So like I mentioned earlier, I did lean on a lot of my friends from college that I had known, who are parents, and most of my friends are cisgender heterosexual women. And so I had a lot of people that I could talk to that I felt would respect me and care about me and not misgender me and guide me through this journey. And a lot of the messages and things that they said were, you have to advocate for yourself. They're not going to believe you because you're Black. You have to keep notes of your body. You have to keep notes of your symptoms so that you have proof, which is part of the reason that they encouraged me to go out and find a doula so that I could have someone else advocating with me. So from the beginning, not only was I worried about the fact that I'm a trans mass person who was pregnant, but I also was worried about how my race would play into that. Now, I also feel very fortunate that, as you heard in my bio, I have been an advocate since I was 7 years old. I was born HIV positive, and so I learned very early on what it meant to stand up for myself, my identity, and my being. And so it just gave me an awareness that I had never crossed my mind that being Black and pregnant was could be a barrier or something to be concerned about. And so I went in, I followed the advice of my friends, and I followed the advice of our doula, and I advocated. There actually is a moment through the labor process where my epidural came out twice. I don't like pain. Some people, kudos to every person who has given birth without an epidural. I salute you. No way in hell was that going to be me. I do not like pain. But my epidural came out twice. And the second time, we didn't know the epidural had come out, but I started getting this pain on my left side that was unbearable. And it came out 3
minutes.
Oh, sorry. That was just so unbearable. And no one was listening to me. They kept saying, well, you're just pushing. You just got to push. You got to push through it. And I literally had to grab one of those doctors and say, you are not listening to me. While as terrifying as it was, I was grateful that my doula was there to say something needs to happen, that Alfonso was there to hold me near, and that I had the strength enough to say, no, this is not right. Something needs to be done about it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, babe. Okay, so we have a couple of minutes, and there are two big things that I wanted us to talk about. So we're gonna try and make these quick.
Sure.
So this is a very public process that we went through. We were very open about it because we wanted to be visible for other people. Where does your resilience come from, and how can people tap into that for themselves?
Yeah. So like I just mentioned, I was born HIV positive. So resilience is something that I have had to know my entire life. Getting through judgment and other people's opinions about my mother and how she contracted HIV and what it meant for me to have HIV, and then being trans masked. I'm a firm believer that God does not put more on us than we can bear. So my faith is the first place that I lean when it comes to resilience and pushing through. I also have a firm understanding that I was put here to be a voice, to be a representation. And there are so many people like me. You may not see many trans mass folks that have given birth, but I promise you, there are so many people like me that do not have the voice or the ability to say out loud that this is who I am and this is my story. And so I decided that I would carry that additional weight on my shoulder to be the voice, to be the face, to advocate for the rights, not the erasure of motherhood or maternal health, but the inclusion of all people that have uteruses, because everyone that has a uterus and the ability to give birth does not identify as a woman. And this is me using my face to ask for humanity for people who identify like me or that are identified as anything other than woman.
In that same breath, what are you hopeful for transmasculine and non-binary folks, people with uteruses? What are you hopeful for all of them collectively in the reproductive justice space?
I'm hopeful that anyone who desires to give birth can have a healthy, happy family and be respected in their journey.
Mm. Mm. Thank you, babe. Thank y'all for having us. Thank you for the amazing work that y'all are doing to support all birthing people. And best of luck. Happy education to everybody throughout the rest of this summit.
Thank you for having us.
Oh my goodness. My goodness, Jamel, Alfonso, thank you so, so much for sharing your story with us today, being transparent, being very open just about your experience. And oh my goodness, when you said you grabbed that doctor and said, "You are not listening to me," I felt that. I felt that. So thank you so, so much for sharing your story with the world. It is a story that many, many, many people need to hear. And we are just so grateful that you chose to share that with us all today. So thank you so much for your time and your very, very, very empowering story. All right. So to continue on with our panel discussion today and stay on that high that Jamel and Alfonso set us on, I have the honor of introducing two more speakers who will be sharing their stories. And I will start with Ashley Reed. Ashley has been a licensed clinical social worker since 2018. Since she's worked with numerous African American clients that have experienced postpartum depression or anxiety, many of these clients have had difficult familial relationships. Therefore, we have navigated through ways to improve those situations together. Ashley has also helped families address the hormone-related concerns that may be worsening their postpartum symptoms. Having personally experienced a miscarriage and had a son who passed away due to birth defect, Ashley has experience with infant loss. She took steps to prevent postpartum depression by attending the PSI training to help herself and others. Ashley utilized PSI groups to help with her grief and parenting journey so that she can describe the group experience to others. During her pregnancy and postpartum period, Ashley utilized a doula, 2 lactation consultants, a high-risk OBGYN, a postpartum physical therapist, and a chiropractor. She now shares the importance of these resources with her clients. Natasha James. Natasha James, known as Coach Tosh, is a master life coach, serial entrepreneur, writer, producer, board member, and postpartum advocate. As a woman of color and a mother of 5, including children born during the pandemic, Coach Tosh understands the challenges of the postpartum journey. She creates safe spaces for moms to share their experiences, cultivating resilience and helping them navigate their new normal. Coach Tosh's work extends to producing shows that shed light on postpartum experiences, contributing to the broader conversation. Without further ado, I will pass our next fireside chat to Ashley Reed and Natasha James.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hi, Ashley. Hi, how are you doing, Natasha? It's nice to see you in person.
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain. Can't complain. I'm happy to be able to share space with you today to share our experiences with postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and hopefully inspire someone to, seek help or some kind of resource to help them along their journey. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Same to you.
all right. So, well, I can jump right on in and just give a little brief backstory about my own personal experience with postpartum depression. So I am what I like to call an experienced mom of 5. I have an 18-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a set of twins. That will be 3 tomorrow, actually. I was telling someone, I remember when I had my 18-year-old, 6 days after my 17th birthday, I remember being in the hospital room and feeling emotional by something that someone said, and I cried a little bit. And I remember someone mentioning the baby blues. It's just a case of the baby blues. But at 17, I didn't really think much of it. And so it wasn't until I had my 6-year-old, which was my third child, that I had that feeling that something was off, something wasn't right. I couldn't really shake that feeling of failure or just constant sadness. I just felt like no matter what I was doing, I just could not get a hang of myself. I didn't know if it was a change of environment or what it was. And so I was up one night and just Googling symptoms, as we do these days. And I came across the term postpartum depression. That was the first time I had ever heard of that term before. And I was 28, 29 at the time. And so after that, I just still didn't really put too much thought into it, just kind of cycled through and prayed my way through it, as, being from the South, a lot of us are taught to do, and just kept on moving forward. And so it wasn't until I became pregnant with my twins in 2020, smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, that it really just hit me. And I remember telling my partner, hey, I don't want to experience the same lows that I did with our daughter. So I want to try to be as prepared as I possibly can and make sure I got support system and everything in place. But what I realized now, looking back, no matter how prepared I tried to be, I still was not prepared enough. And I'm not sure if it was because it was twins, it was during the pandemic where, and I come from a big family, so we are used to supporting each other and relying on each other and having that village. And so during the pandemic, all of that was snatched away from me. So here we are home, newborns, 2 toddlers and a teenager working from home, and there's no village and you have to do everything by yourself. And so I would say postpartum depression and anxiety hit me extremely hard. And there were days where intrusive thoughts were boom at the front, and they were just taking over my day-to-day life. And I honestly did not see how I could get out of it. I felt like I was drowning in a never-ending cycle of sadness and sorrow and failure, and I just could not breathe. And I just remember feeling like I was ready to breathe again. And so I started back seeing my therapist, and eventually, most recently, went ahead and talked to my doctor and decided to take a journey towards just getting on some kind of regimen to help manage that depression and anxiety, to have better days. And so here we are.
Yeah. Wow. Such a powerful story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. What about you and your experience? As I know you are a professional yourself, so I can't imagine what that's like dealing with postpartum depression on your own. How was that journey for you?
Yeah, well, I felt like there were so many shocks. There were so many layers to dealing with it, because it was, we were surprised at the severity of my son's birth defect. He had what was called a omphalocele. And so those come in different sizes. It's essentially when some of your abdominal cavity organs are like in a pouch sitting outside of your stomach. So for some kids, it might just be like just the bladder. But for Judah, it was 3 organs. And so it was called like a large omphalocele. And so we were told he was just going to need a surgery when he was a few weeks old. And they basically just lower the organs back into the abdominal cavity. And then he might have to wear like gauze, or essentially like an ace bandage, for a few months. And we knew we were going to have to be like gentle with his stomach and everything like that. But we knew there was a plan in place. So it was tough for us when he was born and we found out the severity of everything because his lungs were too small. And that was really what um, ultimately led to his passing. And so nobody had told us that until he was here. And, I was going to the specialist like every week, sometimes twice a week for all the ultrasounds. But I have a friend who's an OBGYN in Pennsylvania, and she was explaining to me that sometimes they really can't assess how well a baby's lungs are doing on those ultrasounds. And so they probably didn't know that his lungs were too small because from what they could tell, he was still doing his little practice breaths. So it looked
Right.
like he was breathing, but it was really my he needed my body,
Right.
to really maintain everything. And so yeah, he was in the NICU for 9 days and had to be taken to CHOA in Atlanta on his first day of life, like first 24 hours, and so yeah, he passed after 9 days. So that was our shock, to deal with the shock and then the layers of grief, that this was completely different than what we had anticipated. And so from a mental health standpoint, I knew like this could lead to postpartum depression real
Right.
fast, you
Right.
know. And my husband knew that too because he actually was married before me and his wife had passed in a car accident.
Oh
And
no.
so he was, unfortunately very acquainted with losing somebody very close to you. So he knew that grief could overwhelm you really quickly. Like he had taken 4 months off after she passed. And then, much later he met me. But yeah, so the weekend after Judah passed, Michael had been talking to some of Michael's my husband. He had been talking to some of his friends who are ministers, and they were like, "Hey, we're ministering in Florida this weekend. Do you want to come?" And Michael's like, "Sure." Like we're not doing anything, So we went to Florida that weekend. Like we were just really active or really intentional about not staying in the bed,
Right.
like because that was very easy to
Get in
just
there
be
and
like, yeah, just like, why did this happen? What did we do wrong? Could I have done anything different? Like, what is God trying to show us? Just all these questions that you're trying to think through.
right.
And still try to figure out, like, okay, now that he was in the NICU and I was trying to learn how to breastfeed, um, how do you like dry up milk? Do I want to have some milk left to preserve? Because you can like send in a little bit of milk and they'll put it in like a ring for you or necklace.
Yeah.
Um,
So
just trying to think like how would we want to commemorate him? And so
did
yeah,
you
just
find
be
any ways to commemorate them?
yeah, so his theme was elephants in his nursery theme.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. And so, we sort of preserved what we had in his room for a while. And the funeral home actually sent us a stuffed animal that's an elephant. And we have his ashes and everything, and we have them in a small urn. And then my parents wanted some of his ashes as well, so they have them in a small urn. And there's a necklace that I have that somebody sent me that was really special to me. It's like I think it means I'll hold you in my heart until I hold you in my arms. Sorry, it's hard to see, but it's like two circles,
It is
a big
beautiful.
one and a little one. I'm not wearing it right now because I have a 3-year-old daughter, and so she
Like,
catches her finger in it when I'm holding her, and
yeah,
so I'm trying to set her down, and she's pulling me with her.
I know that one. I know that one. Well, that is such a beautiful testament of your strength, of your faith, of your endurance. And I cannot possibly imagine what that experience was like for you and your family. My heart goes out to you guys, and you are definitely a superwoman in my eyes after having dealt with that. You are most certainly a survivor. And again, my heart just definitely is with you. So I one of my twins during the pandemic, they weren't letting your spouses go with you to the appointments. And so I had a high risk pregnancy, had preeclampsia, severe anemia, end up getting iron transfusions. It was terrible. I definitely do not recommend, but we discovered that one of the twins had an enlarged ventricle in his brain. So one of his ventricles were larger than the other. And so that was definitely terrifying to have to go to each visit and try to remember everything that the specialist was telling me so I can go back home and tell my partner and tell everyone. And it was getting really overwhelming because I was thinking the same thing. What did I do wrong? Is it something that I missed? Did I not take the right prenatal vitamins? Like is there something that I could have done differently? And so he was born. He has a big head, but we like to say daddy has a big head too, and mama does too. And we go to see a pediatric neurologist at CHOA actually twice a year up until recently. We recently had our last MRI about 2 months ago. And the pediatrician said that everything looks great and they don't see a need for us to come back as often. So that was a praise report. That was definitely a praise report. So I think it is about time for us to wrap up, Ashley. You had such a beautiful story. It was so beautiful talking to you. I'm sending you in a tremendous amount of love and blessings and encouragement and strength and prayers to you and your family as you journey on through.
Thank you so much. Same to you. Thank you for sharing your words of wisdom and your expertise too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for this platform.
Absolutely.